Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second keynote of Wakelet Community Week. I have been excited about this one for so long, ever since we got into the planning phases for it. I hope you're all having an amazing community week so far. We are on day 2. We've still got a few days left, and there is so much more knowledge that you can glean from all of the different keynotes and sessions that we've got planned. I can see that we've got a truly international audience, of course. Hey, James, Shamal, Denise, Liliana, KK from Texas. And we've also got Nicholas in the chat as well, who'll be interacting with you as we go around. So I'm really excited about this session because it is right there in the theme of what Community Week is all about. It's about the future of education. And the reason why I love this upcoming session is it's not just considering the future, it's the past, it's the present, and the future as well. There's that old saying where if you don't learn from your past, you can't build your future, right? And I think that that's really, really important. And I think that when you focus that and bring that towards education, it makes a lot of sense as well. So the theme of the week is the future of education, as you all know. And without further ado, I would love to bring on Nicholas Froney to talk about that exact subject. Hi, Nicholas.
What's up? How you doing?
I'm doing very well, brother. It's so good to see you. You know that it's always a pleasure working with you, and I'm really excited about this one. I can't wait to see what you say.
And I love all the work you're doing, and it's so just incredible the community that you bring together, the international community that you bring together. Obviously, there's a lot of people from the States, but you're seeing educators all over the world. But again, that reinforces all the amazing work that educators are doing. And like you said, the future of learning. It's funny because it's exciting and scary at the same time.
Right.
Yeah, because it's almost like set sail and you don't know where you're going to land, because there's so many different things coming at us. But thank you for having me, and thank you for doing this.
Oh no, it's our privilege, honestly. And you know, things are moving faster than ever for educators, right? And it's nice to take a moment and stop and reflect and catch up and predict what's going to happen in the coming years. So I will pass it over to you, Nick, to begin. We've got your presentation right here, and I'll see you shortly. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, hello everybody. My accent, if you can hear it, is a New Jersey accent. So I'm in my 21st year teaching high school in New Jersey, but I want to get to know all of you first. So if you can, in the chat, these are all American films and TV shows about education and teachers. So if you haven't seen them, that is fine. All I want you to do in the chat is to put the decade that you started in education. So which decade did you start in education? And your options are obviously the 70s. That's a show called Welcome Back, Kotter, which is an iconic show. 80s, if you started, that's a film called Fast Times at Ridgemont High. That's very popular in the United States. Obviously 90s, I'm sure most of you are familiar with Clueless. Mean Girls for 2000s. Glee, a very popular show here in the 2010s. And now a very popular show, Abbott Elementary. So in the chat, put either the show, film, or decade. Oh, we have a lot of 2000s. We have 80s. Andrew, oh my God. Amazing educational career. And thank you so much for being here. 2000s, 2020s. We have some very new novice educators. I'm honestly a Mean Girls generation. My first year of teaching was in 2002, 2010s, 1990s. God, we have everyone from starting educators to veteran educators. I'll be honest, I start to feel like I'm at that end of it as far as veteran, being in my 21st year, 2007, late 80s. It's so inspiring to see how many educators here have been in education since the 90s and the 80s. All right, well, let's get rolling. So as Misbah mentioned, obviously the whole premise of this community and this session is the future of education. As I mentioned before, I wasn't kidding. The future of education scared me to a certain point because things are moving so fast. And as educators, not only do we have to learn to keep up, but then we have to be able to provide that instruction to our students. It's, again, I would always compare it, as we've seen examples, it is like learning how to fly a plane while you are building a plane at the same time. And it's very tough to do, but as educators, we seem to do it. Just to give you a quick little background about myself, I'm in my 21st year of teaching high school history in New Jersey. I'm an outspoken educator and outspoken student advocate. I teach at the high school I went to. Please, in the chat, let me know if you teach at the school or the community that you grew up in, because I think so many of us invest in the schools that kind of invested in us. I was named Upstander of the Year by the HRC. I was Teacher of the Year by the American Conference on Diversity. I was honored by the NEA for my advocacy work and my educational strategies. But more importantly, this is my real resume. When I was 12, everyone called me Eddie Munster and Dumbo, which are two, a TV show and a Disney show, and made fun of me to the point I used to super glue my ears to my head. When I was a senior, I got dumped right before prom. Prom is obviously a very important event here, and I got dumped right before prom. During high school, I battled with anxiety, depression, stress, but thankfully to my teachers, my administrators, my coaches, even my school lunch lady, I got through it. School's a community. Education is a community as educators, but the buildings we work in, it's not just education, it's a community. And for so many of us, including myself, it was a sanctuary. So I just want to say and start off by saying thank you for everything you do for your students. Not only educate them, but to nurture them, to inspire them, to feed them, to ensure that they have everything they need. And it's so inspiring to see educators around the world giving their heart, souls, knowledge, and even often money to their students. So yeah, because of my educators, I'm here now. I do want to break, you started teaching the community you grew up in, but have since moved to another state. Spicoli as a student, Mean Girls as an educator. You got to love a good Spicoli reference. So it's so interesting. So many of you are teaching in different countries, not only different communities, but different countries, which is incredible. So today, I'm going to simply break it down. And I am a good educator. Based on experience, I can tell you right now, I am not the best educator on this platform. I'm not the best educator at my school. All I want to do today is to just remind you of the amazing work that you're doing. Also to just share some things that I've been doing over the past 21 years on how my teaching has evolved and adapted. And just to give you some inspiration to maybe take risks with your students and focus on certain skills that we may normally not focus on. So first thing I'm going to encourage you to do is take risks. Second, we're going to talk about how sometimes the students misbehavior. Those behaviors that distract us in class or cause them to be what we consider disruptive sometimes can also be their greatest asset. I'm going to share some other strategies and activities that I've done, as well as answer any questions. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat if something comes up. I know there's a little delay, so I'll address it even if I've already moved on. But let's get rolling. I will be honest. As a teacher, the last few years, I've included very modern technology and resources and ed tech, but I've also went back to traditional forms of education. And I started to focus more on soft skills that students, because of technology, because they're on their phones all the time, because they're in front of a computer all the time, may be losing out on. So as an educator, I'll say it in the past 3 years, I focused so much more on soft skills than actual hard skills, just because those skills are so much more essential for them later on in life, regardless of whatever field they tend to go in. So this presentation is kind of focusing on how part of the future of education also lies in continuing to do things that we've done in the past that are so much more necessary now in the present because of technology and resources and everything that's being thrown at us. So taking risks. We've all been in a position to create a lesson. We spend hours on a lesson. In our minds, we see it going the perfect way. We see everyone engaged. We think everyone's going to be involved. And for some reason, it doesn't turn out the way we think it does. So many times we do lessons that on paper seem perfect, but in reality and practice, they don't pan out, which is fine. As a teacher, I will retire from teaching when I stop trying new things with my students, because that is my self-reflection that I've no longer am able to do what I used to do. So as a teacher, the one biggest thing I always encourage you to do is to take risks. try things, find out what they like, find ways to adapt it to your lessons. And my presentation is kind of all based on things that I saw my students needed, skills that I thought would essentially benefit them years to come, and then applying those strategies to an educational setting. Obviously, many of you have seen this model as far as the ideal of engaging experiences, experiments, and simulations. So this is the general aspect of how students learn. Again, it's very general. It doesn't mean it's exact for everyone, but this is how we retain information. 5% of lecture. So I hope you retain more than 5% of what I shared today, but if you don't, that's completely fair. 10% of what we read, 20% of audio visual. So ideally, you'll remember 20% of what I present to you today because I'm showing you something and discussing it. 30% of what's demonstrated, 50% of what group discussion, 75% of what we practice, and 90% of what we teach others. I try to live now in my 21st year of teaching. I try very hard to live in the participatory teaching methods part of the pyramid: group discussion, practice, and teaching others. Just because I have found, and again, some people may disagree, but I have found that those have been the most effective, not only for retaining information, but better understanding it. So this presentation is going to kind of focus on that aspect of ways to not only get students to understand the material we're trying to share with them, but also to allow them to apply it, and so they could fully understand it and use it later on in life. So one of my favorite simulations and favorite activities I do with my students is job interviews and resumes. So I teach history, but also teach a class called pop culture. It's history through pop culture. So for my history classes, I'll have students create a resume for a historical figure. For my pop culture classes, as you can see, they'll pick a fictional character they want, and they have to create a resume. So the whole point of this is to not only get them to understand the format of a resume, but also to be able to translate information that may not seem to apply into a resume format. So my goal, and I've been doing this now, this activity in particular, for probably 7 or 8 years, it's one of their favorites, and it's one of the most effective ones that I have done, where it's encouraging students to learn how to strategize on a resume, which we all will have to do at some point, but also then follow up with a job interview. And having students obviously interview as SpongeBob, Peppa Pig, and Spider-Man is entertaining, but it's also allows them the opportunity to work on that skill set. So something very simple like this, especially as a high school teacher, resumes to me are so essential. If you teach middle school or say grades 4 through 6, you could always downplay it a little bit so they don't need as much detail. But doing a resume and doing a job interview, whether it's for historical figures, scientists, mathematicians, any subject, writers, authors, characters, there's so many different ways to apply this. And I've seen so many teachers take this and run with it and do it in such amazing ways, where it's, again, it's not very technologically advanced. At the same time, it's such a valuable skill and a fun activity and an engaging activity for students. The winner of this past year's resume was Scooby-Doo. So if you're not familiar with Scooby-Doo, it's a cartoon character. The student actually interviewed full Scooby-Doo character, very entertaining, but did an amazing job. So even something simple like this, they always seem to impress me by the amount of creativity and skill set they have. Now, when they make their own resume, they can obviously have such an easier time doing it for themselves. Because if you can make a resume for Scooby-Doo, you can make a resume for yourself. So this is one activity that I've done, which I thought was so effective. And I always encourage more secondary educators to apply it, just because it's such a very, very necessary skill, but it's something that students need to work on. When it comes to misbehavior, I was a kid who liked to doodle. Some kids like to tap, some kids like to sing, some kids move around. I was the kid who liked to doodle. Now, if you're trying to teach a lesson and a kid's doodling, you may seem that as a disruption or a misbehavior or a distraction. But in my 21 years of education, I've learned that sometimes a student's misbehavior or the disruptive behavior that they do, and I quote it because it's not really disruptive, it's probably something they love and they're very skilled at, can also be their greatest gift. Turning misbehavior into assets. Sometimes when a child has a behavioral problem, it could actually be their greatest strength. So many students speak through their creativity, not their words. And I apologize. It's the example I want to show you is Anthony Mackie, not Artie Lang. This is Anthony Mackie. Many of you probably know him from as Falcon, now new Captain America from Marvel. So Anthony Mackie is one of my favorite stories to tell about a teacher who took something that was considered disruptive and turned it into a skill set. Now, if you could see this, in third grade, Anthony Mackie's teacher noticed he had trouble focusing and he constantly moved around. He was that very active kid. And what the teacher did, instead of trying to discipline him, punish him, or even say that we should medicate him, the teacher encouraged his family to put him into theater. Anthony Mackie will say, because of his third grade teacher, he is now a Marvel Avenger. And it's something simple like that of finding out what our students are good at and what they're passionate about and try and find ways to incorporate it. And again, as the future of education evolves, we're going to have all these tools which will help us. But the relationships we develop, the core things that we help students with, there's nothing. I think AI is incredible and it's a great teaching tool. It won't replace teachers. TVs could have replaced teachers, but they didn't. They need that human aspect. They need the ability to look at a child and see what they need and try to find great strategies to help them nurture that. And regardless of all the tech, I don't think anything will be able to do that. Now, my example, Captain America, is Paulina. So, great example. Paulina was a student who used to sketch during class. She would sketch all the time when we were taking notes. Often noticed she probably wasn't sketching what we were discussing. She was just doing her own little thing. So one day after class, I kept her. I kept her after class to talk to her. And I just said, do you like to draw? And she nodded yes, didn't say a word. And I said, so here's what you're going to do. I teach history, of course. So I said, instead of defining the historical terms we have to define, I want you to draw the terms. And I said, it'll take more time, so I'll give you more time, but I want you to sketch the terms instead of defining them. And I was like, would you want to do that? And she nodded yes. 2 days later, she comes in with this whole layout of every term sketched. Probably had to have spent 6 to 8 hours on it. Now, at the same time, if she did the terms, she would have probably taken her 20 or 30 minutes. So with that being said, she spent more time doing this, sketching the terms, because it's something she enjoyed. So what I decided to do next was there was a company called Sock Problems, and it's this nonprofit that raises money for different issues with awareness, whether it's mental health, gun violence, assault, things like that. And so they were looking for a design to basically to help promote the need for gun policy and to obviously help deter any gun violence, especially amongst youth. So I presented it to Paulina, and 2 days later she came by with the sketch, which it was a child on a chair reaching for a bookshelf, and on the bookshelf it was literally a book or a gun. I thought it was the most powerful thing I've ever seen. I ended up submitting it on her behalf. A few weeks later, we get an email from the company. They picked her design. So this was a young lady who was basically struggling in my class. I found out something she was good at, and by her sophomore year, she had a sock with her design on it. She is now in art school. And so that's just one of the ways as educators. And I know all of you have stories like this. All of you have stories of finding out something your students are good at and then finding ways to encourage them and nurture them. Now, as important as it is that she learned history, it was more important to help her nurture this skill because this is what her life is going to be as an artist. Some other things. And again, these are things that I have done because they help nurture other skills. And the only thing I ideally want you to do, I'm the last person to tell anybody how to teach. We have educators here who started in the 1980s. I can learn so much from you and your experience. I just want to kind of remind you that not only you're doing amazing work, but also feel free to take risks and find ways to take things that they're already doing and then to implement them. Again, focusing on soft skills, discussion, creation, collaboration, those skills that will apply to any job that students have. All right, great teacher hack. I don't know if it's a problem internationally, but in America, high school students and junior high students all have earbuds in their ears at all times to the point where they don't hear anything. So to basically to basically get my students to pay attention, I came up with one of the best teacher hacks. So what I do, and I had an elementary school teacher adapt this, and I'll share that as well. What I decided to do was have my students list all the phrases that I say the most, all the phrases. I then turn that into a bingo card. So during class, every 2 weeks, I'll pass out a bingo card, and my students will obviously check off every time I say one of my catchphrases, so to say. And the 5 students who actually get bingo then can be exempt from an assignment or get extra credit depending on what they want. There was a teacher, an elementary school teacher, who was teaching colors and did the same thing with colors. I know there was an English teacher talking about literature and doing the same thing with characters. So bingo, again, it seems so simple, but it was such an effective strategy to ensure that my students listened to me. And if you teach high school, catchphrases are great. Believe me, your students know them. Our students know us better than we know ourselves sometimes. So that's a little cheesy teacher hack, which I love and I continue to do. Media literacy is so important. Students are consuming so much information on social media, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, obviously X or Twitter or Facebook. So I've created activities to help them be able to navigate what is fake, what is real. Also to focus on things like clickbait, how these companies are intentionally trying to mess with them psychologically to get them to engage with them on social media and things like that. So a simple activity, again, to help students with media literacy. In America, we have something called TMZ, which is a very, very iconic entertainment, breaking news show segment website. So I'll have my students create clickbait activities, clickbait stories based on real historical events. And then we obviously have to determine what they are talking about. So these are historical examples. So this is an example of one of my students did this past year. You won't believe what was spotted in the American waterway. The #1 newest farming secret that farmers wish they knew. Americans are getting rid of horses, ? So these are 3 clickbait stories that obviously if you saw them online, you would be suspicious to click on them. But when you do see the actual reality of the story, it's the steamboat, the railroad, and the plow. Very simple. So they had to take historical events and then create clickbait stories for them. And again, another teacher, I shared this activity, another teacher now does it with literature, where they're studying a novel and they have to create clickbait stories for that novel. Because it teaches media literacy, also it helps them understand the information and reinforce the information that they're learning. So and again, a lot of you are sharing your comments and activities you do. There's so many different soft skills. There's so many different traditional forms of education that I feel like are more essential now than ever before, because we're plowing ahead, literally, no pun intended, with all this technology, which is getting thrown at us faster than we can actually utilize it. Having students create portfolios has become my next biggest passion. A Wakelet is such a great resource. Again, obviously, I'm not selling it here because we're on the Wakelet community, but as many of you know, Wakelet is such a great resource to help students create portfolios, to help create resources for them that they could then utilize later on in life. So yeah, shout out to Wakelet for making things 100 times easier so students could create portfolios. I don't know if it's an international problem. I'm going to say that every time because obviously with bingo, do you get instances of he didn't say that or similar? For the most part, I never got an instance of that because usually multiple students will have it. And obviously when you say something, you'll probably know it's on the bingo card. All right, because you'll literally see everyone doing it. So, I mean, I've never had students challenge it. I've had a student who tried to check a few things off that I didn't say to try to get one by, but obviously my other students shot that down very quickly because they were listening. So there's definitely multiple ways to do it, and bingo gets very competitive in all age groups, especially high school. So TikTok is a problem, again, at my school, I'm sure, as well as other schools. TikTok is a very interesting thing because when my students know something that I don't think they should know, and I say, where did you learn that? 90% of the time they will say on TikTok. So as much as I think it's a problem with education, I think it could be a major resource. So again, I'm taking something that they are on all the time, unfortunately, probably too much, and I'm trying to find ways to apply it. So what I'll have my students do, if we're studying something, say the American Revolution, I will have them find TikToks on the American Revolution and then analyze them. I'll have them insert the TikTok in the center of the slide right here, and then I'll have them describe the TikTok to basically, is it historically accurate? What messaging, what angle are they trying to make? How would you make it better? Or I have my students create a TikTok for the activity we're doing. So if they have to summarize the American Revolution, they will create a TikTok for that with the information and share why they did that. And again, it's media literacy. It's taking something that they already use and are familiar with, the format, and then applying it in a different way. The same way that resumes, we had to do research papers. I decided to switch research papers to resumes because it's the same aspect of research, but they're creating something that they will need to know how to use in the future. Because a lot of times as educators, we should be able to justify why we're teaching something. And if a student says, why are we learning this? And I'm not able to say, I know, or this is the reason, I often then question, why am I teaching it? Because obviously history is so important, but there's so many aspects of history that apply to the present. So we have to be able to kind of show that the things we're doing, the skills we're teaching them will be so essential later on. Persuasive essays, and I've got a few more minutes. Persuasive essays. Getting students to do persuasive essays was tough, but what I decided to start it with was unpopular opinions. So I have students share unpopular opinions, and they have to defend their unpopular opinions with their classmates, which again allows them for dialogue, for discussion, for having engagement and collaborating and hearing ideas that students may have. And it could be some of the simplest things. This is how we get into persuasive essays. Have them share an unpopular opinion, then have them defend that unpopular opinion. It could be something simple. Like one of the biggest debates we had in my class was who the best Spider-Man was. And it was very interesting to see all my students who normally would not engage, got engaged because they were so passionate about it. These are some of the examples. French dressing belongs in spaghetti. Yes, I think every student was trying to debate that, but one of my students thought it was a very simple, obvious thing. Definitely an unpopular opinion. Comic Sans is a professional font. Yes, I'm sure some of you are very upset by that, and I apologize. That was a very tough one to defend. And then from this, we then launch into persuasive essays. It allows them to get a better understanding of how to have a conversation with someone. My favorite activity that we do, historically, they have to pick a historic product, and then I have them do a pitch. They have to create a logo, a slogan, and then do an elevator pitch. They have to sell that product in the present. So this is a great activity that my students love doing collectively as a group. Here are some of the examples that they've done. These are some of the logos, and they basically have to create a whole new brand, a logo, a slogan, and they have to come up with a minute elevator pitch to sell their product to investors. And again, something so simple, but so many professions require not only pitches, but discussions, presentations. This one teaches them something that most business people have difficulty doing. Just because a few of my friends run businesses, and I was telling them about it, and they said they wish some of their employees had the ability to create something out of nothing and then apply it to whatever they're trying to study at the business. So to recap, take calculated risks. Please try new things. Even if they fail, I love my failures because it's just something that I know I tried and I won't do it again. Turn their misbehaviors into an asset by trying to find ways to incorporate in class. Find out what they're good at and find ways to incorporate it. If you have a student who likes playing guitar, I have my student bring their guitar and we use it for different activities. Things like that, I think so important, but also go back to connections and knowing to your students. And more importantly, many of you are done with school, many of you are still in school, and you're here. That just says so much about you as an educator. I can't thank you enough. Just please continue being the passionate, compassionate, nurturing teachers that you've always been. The world needs more educators, and I just want to thank you for choosing this profession because there is no greater profession than being an educator. If there's any questions, if anybody wants to put any in the chat or any discussions, or if you want to follow me or reach out to me, you could find me on socials. I'm going to put it here. And I will put my email here as well. Do not laugh because it's a Hotmail. But Anybody? Yeah, do not laugh. That's how I age myself.
I'm guilty of that too.
This comment has failed. Oh, it said it failed.
If you write it in the private chat, I can paste it into the comments on our side.
I'll put it. It's at hotmail.com, but it's Ferroni21. Let me see if I do it again.
Ferroni21
at hotmail.com.
Hotmail.
Yeah, I don't. Maybe it's not letting you do emails or in there.
There we go. I've got that now. I can show that.
Thank you so much, everybody. I mean, again, it's so inspiring, the work that you're doing, and I can say this with sincerity, like the work you do inspires me so much, and it's so authentic, and it's so. I mean, I think you're one of the best hype people for educators. You and Wakelet, you guys do such amazing work to celebrate this community.
Oh, thank you, Nick. We appreciate it. I mean, like, we just try and reflect what the community are giving back to us and what they're giving out to the world, and reflect that energy in everything that we do. And I think that your session today was a perfect example of that, because not only did you share some awesome ideas, but I think it's the humility and the realness that you bring to the stuff that you do that makes such a big impact. I have like a few points, like highlights, that I wanted to kind of talk about, and then obviously if anybody in the chat has any questions that they'd like to ask Nick with the short time that we've got left, please do. So first of all, I love the teacher catchphrase stuff. I've seen that stuff on your Twitter previously, and I thought it was such a cool idea. And the reason why I liked it, because you kicked off the session with "Let's get rolling," and as soon as you showed that little thing, I zoomed in. And I was like, it's right there. Look, it says "Let's get rolling." So that was a very accurate bingo sheet. I get 1 point there for sure. I love that. I think that it's such a cool way of not only engaging the class, but there's a reason behind it. That's mind blowing. When I saw it on Twitter, I was just like, oh, that's really cool. But the fact that you're saying that it allows the students, or incentivizes the students, to remove their headphones and lock in, that's awesome.
But it's funny. It's like I just shared that, and so many teachers were doing it in ways that I would have never thought of. Like when they're reading for a book, they have character names. One science teacher was using it for elements, and I'm like, how brilliant is that? Just making sure, and it turns something that, as an educator, again, we always have to trick them into learning.
Right.
It's always a fun project of educators tricking. And you think about some of the best things we learned, it was kind of like, it wasn't directly someone teaching, it was some way they got us to learn something. Right. And I feel like as educators now, we have to be so good at tricking kids, because
you have to, because like you said, the things that you're competing against, like TikTok and video games and stuff, they've been like engineered, designed from the ground up to capture their attention in like on like a chemical level. So you have to bring elements like this into your teaching. I think that's why I love it so much.
And it's just in my 21st year, I mean, there are so many great tools, but it could get so overwhelming for educators. And like, it's funny, because I remember when I first started teaching, they introduced Google and things like that. And the veteran teachers were so overwhelmed and didn't know what they were doing. And then I feel that way now, because we have so many things being thrown at us, but at the same time, there's such great tools, but it's also important to hold on to that core thing that it means to be an educator, like developing relationships, nurturing students, their skills, again, being there for them in more ways than just as a teacher.
And I really like the way that you did that. You went back to the past, and you're saying, look, don't discount the methods from previous decades, just because things have changed so much on a technology level, that still doesn't affect the core tenets of teaching and learning. Those things remain the same. So I love that you made that point too. I did want to ask you, Nick, because I loved how you opened up, because you were like, these are the soft skills, right? These soft skills are super important. And we, working in a technology company, like the amount of times that we look at CVs and we want evidence for those soft skills, because they're the things that make people tick. They're the things that move the needle. It doesn't matter how many qualifications you have. If you're missing those soft skills, it makes it difficult. To you, what would you say is the most important? What would you say is the most important one to engage and activate with students?
I would say, that I try to nurture is adaptability. Having them learn to adapt, having them learn to problem solve. I think problem solving is always on the top of the list. And I'll intentionally, and I'd say, but again, tricking them, I'll intentionally give them an assignment and leave out certain information and see what they do with it, to see if they can figure it out, or if they somehow get stuck. It's just, I'll intentionally do things like that, just to kind of help them have to resolve without me, without my assistance, just so they could then nurture that skill and learn how to collaborate. So I'll give them a lot of tasks where they learn how to interact. It's even having a discussion like that. We don't get mad at each other where you share an idea and it's like there's so many soft skills like that, which I think, and obviously you could tell me differently, if when you whatever profession you go into, like I feel like those are going to carry over and could be applied to any situation.
Yeah, 100%. I think that once students find themselves in a career and that sort of formality and structure that they're used to in school kind of like falls apart, and they're just in the big bold world, and they have to kind of find a way to survive, and they have to find a way to compete as well. It's those soft skills that make a difference. They really do. So I love that you're looking at activating those, and we're trying to do that through Wakelet. We're trying to do that with the Future Ready initiative, and I think that some of the stuff that we're seeing from educators right now, it's making a lot of sense. There's a huge skills gap, a massive skills gap, and it's worldwide. Whether it doesn't matter where you are, that skills gap is being reported by employers who are saying, look, we need evidence of this stuff. So I really love that that's a big part of your teaching. Dude, it's been incredible, honestly. Thank you so much, Nick. I know that you've taken the time to give this session to everybody today, and I think that based on the comments, I know you as well. You're going to go back and you're going to look at them and you're going to reply. I know you, but no, thank you.
So this fills my cup, seeing educators from all over the world here on their time off, engaging, trying to become better teachers, and that just instills. And again, thank you for providing this space, because it's definitely a very empowering, inspiring teacher community.
It's our pleasure, Nick. Thank you so much. Thank you. We appreciate it. And I
will
really
see you in the States. Hopefully I'll see you in the States soon.
Yes, Denver, right? You're going to be there?
Oh, not Denver. Denver. All right. We will connect. But thank you.
We'll connect 100%. Yeah, we'll connect. Nick, thank you so much, brother. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great week. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye. Oh, well, that was incredible. What a great way to end the day. I think we still have a few more sessions though, so I shouldn't say that, but for me at least, it's always such a pleasure speaking to Nick. Like I said, that level of humility and realness. And if you're not following him on Twitter, go ahead and follow him at Nicholas Ferroni. Like, I love his feed, the stuff that he's showing, the techniques and things that he's sharing every single day really are truly incredible. It's just his style of teaching, I think, and he looks beyond the student, he looks beyond the curriculum. He tries to fill those gaps in the curriculum with, well, you saw it. I don't have to talk about it, right? I'd never do it justice. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. Honestly, we're so thankful. I hope that you enjoy the rest of the week. We've still got so many awesome things planned, so many giveaways. We'll be sharing the link to grab your certificate in the chat. I saw a few questions about certificates. If you have any issues, just contact support@wakelet.com or community@wakelet.com, and we'll be able to help you with that. Okay, guys, that's it. On to the next session, and I hope to see you all very soon. Thank you.